The pack arrived for blood. They found their cubs asleep on a human's chest, and the alpha relented. Ethan Cole woke to a world of cold wind and broken metal. The crash had thrown him across the rocks, leaving his body battered and sore. His arm ached, his leg felt heavy, and blood ran down his forehead into his eyes. He blinked, trying to see through the pain. The sky was dark, with clouds moving fast. Small flashes of lightning made shadows dance across the ground. The world spun. He whispered, "Not like this. Not here." He knew he could not stay where he was. The storm was dangerous, and the land was full of predators. Ethan crawled slowly, dragging his body over the rocks and sharp debris. Every movement hurt. He had to find shelter. He had to survive. He had to move. While he crawled, he heard something. A soft, high-pitched sound came from the rocks. It was faint, but he could hear it over the storm. A cry. He froze and listened. The sound came again, weak, small, and frightened. Ethan's heart thumped faster. He crawled toward the noise, careful not to make loud sounds. He saw a small hole in the rocks. Inside, he could see two pairs of tiny eyes reflecting the lightning. They were staring at him. Ethan's chest tightened. "Little ones," he whispered. He could see that the creatures were alien cubs. Their fur was damp and muddy. Their limbs looked weak. One of them had a thin trail of blood on its paw.
Ethan's mind raced.
He had never seen these aliens before, but he knew they were in danger. The storm could kill them if he left them. He had to act fast. He dropped his pack and used his shirt to wrap his hands. Slowly, he pulled the rocks away. The cubs hissed and growled softly, scared. Ethan spoke gently. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." He worked carefully, lifting the rocks one by one. His fingers cut on sharp edges, and blood from his hands mixed with the cubs' dirt and mud. Still, he did not stop. The cubs began to quiet down. Ethan noticed that their breathing was fast and shallow. He wrapped one of the cubs in his jacket and held it close to his chest. The warmth from his body made the cub relax a little. He did the same with the others. Slowly, he pressed them close to him. They shivered but did not try to escape. The storm was growing stronger. Rain hit Ethan and the cubs in sheets. Thunder roared overhead. He found a small cave nearby and crawled inside. It was narrow, and his body scraped the walls. The cubs hissed again, but he calmed them with soft words. He pressed them close to keep them warm. The cave was damp and cold, but together they had some protection. Ethan's shirt was soaked, his arms scratched and bruised, but he did not care. The cubs' lives mattered more than his own pain. He closed his eyes for a moment. The exhaustion was heavy, but he had to stay awake until the cubs slept. He whispered, "You're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." One by one, the cubs' small bodies relaxed. Their breathing slowed. They curled up against his chest and arms. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his heart. Despite the storm, despite the pain, he felt a small spark of hope. He had saved them. They trusted him. He could not fail now. Hours passed. The storm continued, but inside the cave, a small bubble of peace existed. Ethan held the cubs tightly. He could hear their soft breathing, feel their tiny hearts beating against his own. He did not want to move. He could not risk waking them. He whispered stories softly, trying to keep his mind focused. He told them about Earth, about his family, about simple things that made him smile. The cubs did not understand his words, but they listened. He laughed quietly to himself, feeling a strange bond forming. It was not just survival anymore. It was care. It was love. The night went on. Ethan's body was numb, his blood loss making him dizzy, but he kept the cubs safe. Every small noise outside made him tense. He imagined predators, other humans, and worse, the pack that these cubs belonged to. He did not know if the pack would come here. He did not know if they would attack him. He only knew he had to protect these cubs for as long as he could. He whispered again, "I won't let anything happen to you. Not while I live." He tried to find something to eat. His pack had been destroyed in the crash. All he had were scraps, and his wounds were deep. He chewed slowly on a small piece of dried food he had salvaged. The cubs stirred slightly but did not wake. He thought about their parents. He hoped they would come. He hoped they would forgive him. He could not imagine the parents seeing him now, holding their cubs. Would they see a threat, or would they understand he was saving their children? The thought worried him, but he had no time to dwell. He had to keep them alive. Hours passed, and the rain softened. The storm was still strong, but the cave felt safer. Ethan adjusted the cubs, wrapping them in his jacket more tightly. He hummed softly, a lullaby from Earth. Slowly, the cubs' breathing deepened. They fell asleep fully, trusting him completely. Ethan's chest hurt from holding them, but he refused to move. He could feel their warmth, their small lives depending on him.
He whispered, "Sleep now. I've got you." He thought about the future. He had no weapons, no backup, and the planet was dangerous.
The cubs' parents were probably searching for them. Ethan knew they might come with rage. He did not know if he could survive an encounter with the pack. But he also knew one thing clearly. He could not let go of the cubs. Not now. Not ever. He would hold them even if it cost him his life. He would not fail. He would not let blood be spilled while he could protect them. He had made a choice, and he would honor it. The night deepened. Outside, lightning flashed across the sky. The wind howled through the rocks. Ethan felt himself slipping into exhaustion. His eyes closed briefly, but the cub's soft breathing woke him instantly. He stayed awake, moving slightly to adjust their position. He murmured, "Almost morning, almost safe. Just a little longer." Hours passed in this way. Pain, fear, hope, and care intertwined. Ethan had never felt anything so intense in his life. He had never held lives in his hands like this. He understood the weight of trust, of innocence, of mercy. He understood why survival alone was not enough. He understood why humans could fight, protect, and love at the same time. As dawn approached, the storm started to calm. Rain slowed to a drizzle. Ethan could see faint light outside the cave. The cubs were still asleep, their small bodies pressed against him. He realized he had stayed awake all night holding them. He was exhausted, his body screaming for rest, but he smiled. He had survived. They had survived. He whispered, "We made it. We made it, together." He looked outside, seeing the rocks wet and slippery, the land quiet except for the storm's final whispers. He wondered if the pack would come. He wondered if their parents would be angry. He wondered what would happen next. But for now, he held the cubs close, feeling their warmth, feeling life around him. He had done what no one else could do. He had given mercy, warmth, and hope. And even if the pack came for blood, Ethan knew he had already done something important. He had saved the lives of the innocent. He closed his eyes briefly. The cubs shifted slightly but remained asleep. Ethan rested his head against the cave wall, listening to their small breathing. He whispered again, "You are safe now, as long as I live. You are safe." The storm faded. The first light of morning touched the cave, and Ethan Cole stayed awake, the human heart protecting alien life in a world where most would have feared or attacked. In that moment, he became more than a survivor. He became a guardian that the pack had felt something was wrong long before Ethan knew it. In their territory, every sound, every movement, every heartbeat mattered. The cubs were missing. The Alpha, a massive figure with scars across his face, sensed the emptiness in the den. He sniffed the air, his nose picking up strange scents, fear, pain, and something unfamiliar. His growl rolled through the air, low and dangerous. The warriors around him stiffened. They knew what was coming. The Alpha spoke in a voice that made the ground feel heavy. "Find them," he said. "Bring back the cubs. No mercy for those who harm our young." His eyes glowed with a strange light, warning the pack that failure was not allowed. The pack moved. As one they were fast, strong, and deadly. Their claws clicked against stone, Their tails flicked in unison. Even the wind seemed to bow before them. They would not rest until the cubs were returned, and anyone who blocked them would die. Far away, Ethan stirred. He had slept only briefly, holding the cubs close. He felt the weight of exhaustion pressing on him. The cave was quiet now, but the human knew he was not safe. Something in the air felt wrong. He heard distant sounds, low and rhythmic. The ground vibrated slightly under his feet. He pulled the cubs closer, whispering softly, "Stay close. Whatever comes, I won't let it hurt you." Outside the cave, the pack moved with precision. Warriors spread out in all directions. Their senses were sharp, sharper than any human's. They could hear the faintest heartbeat, smell the faintest drop of blood, and sense fear in the air. The Alpha led the way, his massive form gliding over rocks and debris. His eyes scanned every shadow. "They are close," he said. "I feel them." The warriors growled in agreement. This was not a hunt for food. This was a hunt for blood and honor. The cubs were their future, their legacy, and the humans who held them would pay. Ethan crouched in the cave, listening. He could not see clearly, but he could feel the change in the air. The wind carried something strange, something heavy. He whispered, "I hope I'm wrong." But deep down, he knew the pack had arrived. He had never faced anything like this. The cubs stirred in his arms, sensing his tension. They whimpered softly, pressing their tiny bodies against his chest. Ethan kissed their heads and whispered, "I won't let them hurt you." "Not while I live." The first warriors appeared at the edge of the forest. Their bodies were huge, covered in thick fur, with muscles that moved like coiled steel. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. They moved silently, but their presence was terrifying. Birds flew away at their approach. Small animals ran, sensing danger. Ethan's heart pounded. He knew he could not run. He had no weapons. His only chance was to stay with the cubs and hope. Hope that the pack would not kill him immediately. Hope that mercy could exist even for humans. The Alpha stopped a few meters from the cave entrance. His gaze was fixed, searching. He sniffed the air. His ears twitched. He could sense the cubs inside, small and alive. He growled softly, a warning that no one should ignore. The warriors tensed, ready to strike. The air was heavy with anticipation. The storm from last night had left the world wet and slippery, but it did not slow the pack. Nothing could slow them when they hunted their own. Ethan tried to stay calm. He whispered to the cubs, "Don't move. Stay asleep, it's okay." The cubs seemed to understand. They pressed their faces against his chest, shivering but quiet. Ethan held them tighter, feeling the warmth of their tiny bodies. He could hear the Alpha moving closer. The ground shook slightly as he approached. Ethan's mind raced. He could not fight. He could not escape. All he could do was wait and hope that somehow the pack would see that he meant no harm. The warriors circled the cave. Their eyes scanned every shadow. Their claws scraped against rock. Their tails moved like whips, warning each other to stay alert. The Alpha stepped closer, his massive paw touching the cave's edge. He sniffed again. The scent of humans mixed with the scent of cubs filled his senses. He growled, a sound that made the air vibrate. The cubs stirred slightly but did not wake. Ethan held his breath, trying to look as small and calm as possible. He whispered, "Please, just leave us." One of the warriors growled, speaking to the Alpha in their strange language. The Alpha's ears twitched. He listened, then nodded. He stepped fully into the cave, his massive body filling the space near the entrance. Ethan could see his eyes clearly now. They were sharp and intelligent, not just wild. The Alpha was not just a predator. He was a leader. He had power, wisdom, and a sense of honor. Ethan felt fear, but he also felt a strange respect. He whispered, "I didn't mean any harm." The Alpha circled slowly, sniffing the cubs. Ethan kept his hands on them, feeling their hearts beat quickly. He could hear the growls of the other warriors behind the Alpha, but he could not look at them. He could only focus on the cubs. Suddenly, one cub twitched in sleep. Ethan held it tighter. The Alpha's ears flicked. He paused, studying the human. His nose sniffed the air near Ethan's chest. He could smell fear, exhaustion, and care. The human had protected the cubs all night. He had not caged them. He had not tried to escape. He had held them, keeping them safe. The Alpha growled softly, almost in surprise. The warriors whispered among themselves. Some were confused. Others were angry. The Alpha raised a massive paw. The cave was silent, except for the cub's soft breathing. Ethan could not move. He could feel the weight of the Alpha's gaze. He whispered, "Please, I just wanted to keep them alive." The Alpha sniffed closer. The cub stirred again, pressed against Ethan. The Alpha's eyes softened slightly. He could sense the truth. The human was not a threat. He had been a protector. He had risked his life. He had stayed when most would have run. He had shown care, mercy, and courage. The warriors looked at each other, unsure what to do. Their instincts screamed to attack, to retrieve the cubs, to punish the human, but the Alpha's presence held them back. His gaze was firm. He growled low, a warning and a command. The pack froze. The Alpha studied Ethan and the cubs. He sniffed again, then stepped back slightly. His massive form blocked the cave entrance, but he did not attack. Ethan's heart pounded. He could not believe it. The Alpha had not moved to kill him. The cubs were safe, at least for now. Hours passed in silence. Ethan whispered softly to the cubs, soothing them. The Alpha remained near the entrance, watching. The other warriors stayed behind him, tense but patient. The storm outside had passed, leaving a quiet calm. The sun began to rise, casting light on the wet rocks. Ethan realized that for the first time he could see the pack fully. They were immense, terrifying, but intelligent. The Alpha's scars told stories of battles and survival. Ethan understood that these creatures were not mindless killers. They had rules, honor, and loyalty. He hoped that honor would extend to him. The cubs stirred, shifting against Ethan. He pressed them closer. The Alpha's eyes followed every movement.
Ethan whispered, "I won't let them hurt you. I promise."
The Alpha growled low, almost a warning.
Ethan froze.
He did not dare move. He understood the message. The Alpha wanted him to stay still, to show calm and care. Ethan nodded silently. He could not speak in a human voice and expect them to understand. He could only act with his heart. He held the cubs close, showing nothing but protection. As the morning light spread, Ethan realized something. The pack was not leaving. They had come for blood, but now they were waiting for him to show his intent, his loyalty, his courage. He had to survive not just with his strength, but with his heart. He had to show the Alpha that he was a protector, not a threat. He had to hold the cubs, even as exhaustion pressed on him. The Alpha's presence was heavy, powerful, and terrifying, but it was also patient. Ethan knew he had one chance to earn their trust, or he would die. He whispered to the cubs again, telling them stories, singing softly, keeping them calm. The Alpha listened closely, sensing the bond. He sniffed the air around Ethan, trying to understand. He had never seen a human act like this. Most humans ran, fought, or hid. This one stayed, risking everything. The warriors behind him murmured softly, confused, but learning from the Alpha's example. The air was tense, thick with danger, but also with the possibility of mercy. The morning passed slowly. The Alpha did not attack. The warriors stayed silent. Ethan kept the cubs close, feeling their warmth and life. He knew the pack would make a decision soon. He could only hope it would be the right one. He whispered, "We can survive together." The Alpha's eyes flicked, almost approving. Ethan did not know if the pack would leave him alive, but for now, the cubs were safe. And sometimes, that was enough. Survival was not just about strength. It was about care, courage, and heart. Ethan had shown all three, and the Alpha had noticed Dot. Ethan Cole stayed frozen, his body pressed against the cave wall. The cubs were asleep on his chest, their small bodies warm and soft against him. He could hear the low growls of the alien pack outside, the Alpha moving slowly near the entrance. Every step the Alpha took made the ground vibrate slightly. Ethan's heart beat fast. He had never faced anything so terrifying. He whispered softly to the cubs, "Stay quiet, everything will be okay." The Alpha sniffed again, stepping closer. His massive head moved slowly, eyes locked on Ethan and the sleeping cubs. He could smell fear, pain, and exhaustion, but also care. This human had stayed all night holding the cubs, keeping them alive. The Alpha's ears twitched. He had expected a human to run, or to hide, or to try to fight. Instead, this human had done something unexpected. He had protected their young. The Alpha paused, growling low, a sound that echoed in the cave and made the warriors behind him tense. The cubs stirred slightly, their tiny paws twitching in sleep. One yawned softly, pressing its head closer to Ethan. The Alpha watched closely. He had never seen the cubs behave this way with a human. Usually, fear ruled everything. The human's presence should have caused panic. Instead, the cubs were calm, trusting, and warm. The Alpha's instincts told him something important. This human was different. He had shown mercy and courage, two qualities the Alpha respected. Slowly, he stepped back slightly, lowering his massive head to sniff the air near Ethan again. Ethan held his breath. He could feel the Alpha's presence, heavy and strong, but not yet hostile. He whispered softly, "I won't hurt you. I just want to keep them safe." The Alpha's ears flicked. The warriors behind him murmured softly, confused. They did not understand why the Alpha had not attacked. The Alpha's eyes stayed fixed on Ethan, studying every movement. He sniffed the cubs again, then the human. His gaze was sharp, intelligent. He seemed to weigh the human's intent, reading the truth in his actions. The Alpha growled low, a sound that vibrated through the cave. The cubs twitched again but remained asleep. Ethan held them tighter, pressing his face against them. He could feel their tiny hearts beating fast. The Alpha's eyes narrowed. He could feel the bond forming between human and cubs. It was real. It was strong. It was unexpected. He had come for blood, expecting resistance, pain, and death. Instead, he found care, courage, and protection.
The Alpha's growl softened slightly.
The warriors sensed the change. Their leader was pausing, considering something beyond instinct. Hours passed slowly. The sun rose higher, casting light through cracks in the cave. The Alpha remained near the entrance, blocking the way, but not attacking. The warriors behind him stayed silent, tense but waiting. Ethan whispered softly to the cubs, telling them stories, singing lullabies he remembered from Earth. The cubs shifted slightly, pressing closer to him. He could feel their warmth, their trust, their small lives depending on him. He knew the Alpha was watching. He knew any sudden movement could be fatal. He whispered again, "Stay safe." "I won't let anything happen." The Alpha circled slowly, sniffing the cubs from different angles. Ethan stayed perfectly still, careful not to breathe too loudly. The cubs moved slightly in their sleep, nuzzling against him. The Alpha paused. He lowered his massive head, letting his nose brush close to the cubs without touching them. He could feel the human's heartbeat, steady despite exhaustion. He could feel the human's warmth, his care, his life force focused on protecting the young. The Alpha tilted his head, considering. His instincts screamed to attack, but his mind told him to pause. This human was not like the others. One of the cubs twitched awake slightly, its small eyes opening for a brief moment. Ethan whispered softly, "Shh, stay calm." The cub blinked, then rested its head back on his chest. The Alpha growled low, a sound between warning and curiosity. He had never seen this before. Usually, cubs feared humans. Usually, they screamed and ran. These cubs trusted the human. The Alpha's ears flicked. His warriors watched, unsure. The Alpha's decision was critical. He could allow this human to live, or he could end him. The pack waited for his signal, Ethan's muscles ached from holding the cubs. His wounds burned. His arm and leg were bruised and swollen, but he did not move. He could feel the Alpha's gaze on him, heavy and unyielding. He whispered, "I just want them safe. I will do whatever it takes." The Alpha sniffed again, close to Ethan's face. The human did not flinch. He did not try to fight. He did not hide. He stayed with the cubs, showing courage, mercy, and care. The Alpha's growl softened further. He stepped back slightly, giving space but remaining near the entrance. The cubs stirred, pressing closer to Ethan, sensing his strength and heart. Minutes stretched into hours. The Alpha studied the human and cubs, his massive eyes never leaving them. He could feel the human's sincerity, the truth in his actions. The pack sensed the change. Their instincts screamed one thing, but their Alpha's presence commanded another. They waited, watching, learning. The Alpha's decision would define not just the cub's safety, but the future relationship between humans and his pack. He growled low, a sound that vibrated in the cave but did not threaten. It was a warning, yes, but also a test. The human had passed the first trial. Ethan whispered to the cubs, telling them more stories, humming softly, holding them closer. He felt the weight of the Alpha's gaze, but he did not panic. He knew he had to show calm and care. Sudden movements could mean death. The cubs trusted him, and he had to honor that trust. The Alpha watched, sensing the human's focus, his heart, and his courage. Slowly, he took a step back. The warriors mirrored his movement, remaining cautious but patient. The tension in the cave shifted slightly. There was still danger, but also a fragile understanding. As the morning light filled the cave, Ethan realized he had stayed awake all night holding the cubs. He was exhausted beyond belief. His wounds throbbed, his muscles screamed, and his energy was nearly gone. Yet he did not release the cubs. He whispered softly, "You are safe. I will not let anything happen to you." The cubs stirred, pressed their small faces against his chest, breathing calm and steady. The Alpha's eyes followed every movement, studying the human's intent. The human's courage and care were clear. He had survived the night. He had protected the cubs. He had shown mercy where most would have failed. The Alpha circled once more, sniffing carefully. He stepped back and sat at the entrance of the cave. His massive body blocked the way, but he did not attack. The warriors behind him stayed alert but relaxed slightly. Ethan could sense the pause, the hesitation, the decision forming in the Alpha's mind. He whispered softly to the cubs, keeping them calm. He felt hope, fragile but real. The Alpha was giving him a chance. He had earned it, at least for now. Hours passed. The sun rose higher. The cave warmed slightly. The Alpha remained near the entrance, blocking the way, but not hostile. The warriors watched, waiting for the Alpha's command. Ethan whispered to the cubs, telling them stories, humming lullabies, keeping them calm. He felt the bond between human and cub strengthen. He could feel the Alpha's respect, cautious but real. He realized that survival was not just about strength, but about courage, mercy, and care. He had shown all three. And for now, that was enough. As the day went on, Ethan began to understand the Alpha's decision. The pack had come for blood, but they had found mercy instead. They had found courage. They had found a human willing to risk everything to protect the innocent. The Alpha watched, understanding that the human's actions had earned a fragile trust. The cubs slept peacefully, pressed against Ethan, their lives safe for now. The Alpha growled softly, a sound that was both warning and acknowledgement. The pack would not attack today. The human had passed the test. Ethan whispered softly to the cubs, holding them close. He could feel the warmth of life, the bond forming, and the fragile peace that existed in the cave. Outside, the pack waited, tense but patient. The Alpha had decided to spare the human, at least for now. The cubs were safe. And in that moment, Ethan realized that courage, care, and mercy could survive even in the face of death. He had survived. They had survived. and the bond between human and alien cubs had begun. The cave was quiet except for the soft breathing of the cubs and the low growls of the alien pack outside. Ethan Cole held the cubs tightly, their tiny bodies pressed against his chest. His wounds throbbed, his muscles ached, and his energy was nearly gone. But he could not release the cubs. He whispered softly, "I've got you. Stay calm. You're safe." The cubs stirred slightly, nuzzling him, and he felt a small surge of hope. He had survived the night, and now, it seemed, the pack was not attacking. Yet he knew the Alpha's decision could change at any moment. The Alpha stepped fully into the cave, his massive form casting a shadow over Ethan and the cubs. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, and full of thought. The warriors behind him followed, circling the cave but keeping a cautious distance. The Alpha sniffed the cubs, then sniffed Ethan. His ears flicked. He growled softly, a sound that vibrated in the cave but did not threaten. He studied Ethan carefully. He could feel the human's courage, his care, and his patience. He could sense the bond forming between human and cubs. It was strong, real, and unbreakable. The Alpha tilted his head, as if weighing the situation. He could have attacked. He could have ended Ethan's life in a single strike, but he did not. The Alpha's mind was not ruled by rage alone. It was ruled by honor. Ethan held the cubs tighter, feeling the Alpha's gaze pressing on him. He whispered softly, "Please, I just want them safe." The Alpha circled slowly, sniffing the air near Ethan and the cubs. The cubs stirred again, pressing closer to him. Ethan could feel the Alpha's strength, his presence, and his intelligence. He understood that this was not just a predator. This was a leader, a being that commanded loyalty and fear. Ethan kept his head low, his voice quiet, and his hands gentle on the cubs. He knew any sudden move could mean death. Yet he also knew that trust, even fragile, could survive if he acted with care. The Alpha growled low, almost a warning, but there was curiosity in it too. He sniffed the cubs one more time, then turned his massive head to look at Ethan directly. The human's chest rose and fell with exhaustion, but his hands never left the cubs. The Alpha's eyes softened slightly. He had never seen a human act like this. Humans were usually hunters or runaways. They hid, fought, or fled. This one stayed. This one protected. This one risked death for the young of another species. The Alpha's ears twitched, and he stepped back slightly. The warriors behind him mirrored his movement, waiting for a command, confused but obedient. The Alpha was making a choice. Ethan whispered again, "You're safe. I won't let anything happen." He felt the weight of the Alpha's gaze, heavy and alive, but he did not flinch. He could feel the cubs' small bodies trembling against him. He held them closer, his heart beating fast. The Alpha's massive paw touched the cave floor lightly. He did not strike. He did not block Ethan. He only observed. The air was tense but calm, a delicate balance between mercy and danger. The warriors sensed the change, the shift in their Alpha's mind. They did not understand, but they followed his lead. The Alpha had decided to wait, to watch, to judge. Hours passed in silence. The sun climbed higher, casting light into the cave. The cubs slept peacefully, trusting the human fully. Ethan whispered stories, hummed softly, and kept his hands on them. He could feel the Alpha's eyes on him constantly. The human's heart raced, but he remained calm. He knew this moment could decide life or death. He whispered softly, "We'll survive." Together, the Alpha growled low again, this time almost a soft acknowledgement. The warriors shifted, their tails flicking nervously. The pack waited for the Alpha's command. Ethan had passed the first test. Now, it was time for the Alpha to make the final decision. The Alpha stepped closer to Ethan, sniffing the air around the human's head. He could smell sweat, blood, exhaustion, and warmth. He could smell care, patience, and courage. The Alpha's ears flicked. He had never seen this before. He could sense that the human had risked everything to protect the cubs. He could sense that the human's intent was pure. The Alpha paused, his massive chest rising and falling. He turned slightly, signaling the warriors to hold their positions. They obeyed without question, waiting for the Alpha's final choice. Ethan whispered again, "Stay calm. Everything is okay." The cubs stirred slightly but did not wake fully. They nuzzled him, pressing their small bodies against his chest. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his heart. He realized that even in the face of danger, courage and care could create bonds that survived fear and violence. He knew the Alpha could end him in a moment, but he also knew that he had shown enough mercy, strength, and patience to earn the Alpha's respect. He whispered softly, "We can survive. I promise." The Alpha growled softly, a low sound that seemed almost thoughtful. He stepped back slightly, his massive head lowering near the cubs. He sniffed them again, then looked at Ethan with sharp, intelligent eyes. He could sense the human's truth. This human had stayed awake all night, risking death from storm, injury, and predators. He had protected the cubs, kept them alive, and shown mercy instead of fear or violence. The Alpha's ears flicked. He made a decision. He would spare the human. He would not attack. The human had earned a chance, a rare gift in a world ruled by survival and strength. The warriors behind the Alpha relaxed slightly, sensing the shift. Their leader had made the choice. They would not strike, they would not kill. The human was safe, at least for now. Ethan felt a strange relief, though he did not move. He whispered softly to the cubs, "We're safe, at least for now." The cubs stirred, pressing closer to him. He could feel their trust, their warmth, and their life against his chest. He realized that in this moment, human courage, mercy, and care had survived. He had passed the test set by the deadliest pack in the sector. The Alpha circled slowly, sniffing the cubs. One more time. He stepped back, allowing Ethan some space. The warriors followed his movement, cautious but obedient. The Alpha lowered his massive head slightly, as if acknowledging Ethan's courage. The human did not flinch. He whispered softly to the cubs, humming a quiet lullaby. The Alpha's ears flicked. He could sense the bond forming, the trust growing. The Alpha had relented. The pack had come for blood, but they had found mercy. The human had protected the cubs, and that act had changed everything. Ethan held the cubs tightly, feeling their warmth and life. He whispered softly, "You're safe. As long as I live, you're safe." The Alpha remained near the cave entrance, watching. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, and thoughtful. He had learned something important. Strength alone did not rule the world. Courage, care, and mercy had power too. He had come for blood, but he had found respect. The human had shown all three qualities, and that was enough. The Alpha growled low, signaling the warriors to stand down. The threat was gone. Now peace existed in the cave. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher. Ethan whispered softly to the cubs, telling them stories, humming lullabies, keeping them calm. He could feel the Alpha's gaze, heavy but no longer threatening. The warriors relaxed, still tense but obedient. The Alpha had chosen mercy. Ethan realized that he had not only survived, but had changed the course of the pack's actions. He held the cubs tightly, feeling their small hearts beating against his chest. He knew that trust had been earned. He knew that courage and care could survive, even in a world ruled by fear and strength. The Alpha finally stepped fully back, allowing Ethan more room in the cave. The warriors mirrored the movement, giving space but remaining near. Ethan held the cubs close, whispering softly, "We made it. We survived." He could feel their warmth, their life, and their trust. Outside, the pack waited, tense but patient. The Alpha had made a choice that would change the future. He had relented. He had chosen mercy. The human had survived not through strength alone, but through courage, care, and heart. The cubs stirred slightly, their tiny paws pressing against Ethan. He whispered softly, "You're safe, I promise." The Alpha's eyes watched, sharp and intelligent. He could sense the human's sincerity. He could sense the bond between human and cubs. The warriors sensed it too, tension giving way to cautious respect. The pack had come for blood, but now they understood something new. Mercy had power. Courage had power. Care had power. And Ethan Cole had shown all three. As the day passed, Ethan realized the weight of what had happened. He had faced the deadliest pack in the sector and survived. He had protected the cubs. He had earned respect, even from creatures that lived by strength alone. He whispered softly to the cubs, holding them close, feeling life and warmth. Outside, the Alpha and warriors remained alert but no longer hostile. The human had passed the ultimate test. He had shown that even in a dangerous world, courage, care, and mercy could survive. The cave was quiet now, filled only with the soft breathing of the cubs and the gentle rhythm of Ethan Cole's heartbeat. The storm from the previous night had passed completely, leaving the land wet and shining under the rising sun. The Alpha remained at the entrance, his massive form alert but calm. The warriors behind him stayed silent, watching the human and the cubs closely, but with tension easing in their bodies. The air was still heavy, but not dangerous. A fragile peace existed built on courage, care, and mercy. Ethan held the cubs tightly, feeling their warmth and small hearts beating against his chest. He whispered softly, "We survived, together, and now we can rest." He slowly moved deeper into the cave, making sure the cubs were comfortable, their tiny bodies pressed against his chest, trusting him fully. He adjusted them one by one, covering them with a damp but warm fabric of his jacket. Outside, the Alpha and the warriors circled slowly, keeping watch but not approaching. Ethan could feel their presence, heavy and strong, yet no longer threatening. He whispered softly, "You're safe. I will not let anything happen to you." The cubs nuzzled him, pressing closer, and Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. He realized that even in a world of danger, trust and care could survive. Hours passed as the sun rose higher. Ethan rested slightly, leaning against the wall of the cave, keeping the cubs close. He could hear the Alpha breathing outside, a low and measured sound. The warriors shifted occasionally, but remained calm. Ethan whispered stories to the cubs, telling them about Earth, about his family, about simple things he remembered from his life before the crash. The cubs listened in their own way, twitching slightly, but staying close. He hummed softly, keeping them calm and warm. He knew this moment was rare. The Alpha had come for blood, but now he had relented. Mercy had survived, and courage had been rewarded. As the day moved on, Ethan began to move more carefully, exploring the edges of the cave without disturbing the cubs. He looked for water and edible plants, anything that could sustain them. He found a small pool of fresh water nearby and gently lifted the cubs to let them drink. They lapped up the water eagerly, tiny tongues moving quickly. Ethan smiled softly. "Good drink. You need strength." The Alpha watched silently, then stepped back into the sunlight, letting Ethan care for the cubs. The warriors followed, moving cautiously, but without threat. "Dad." It was the first time Ethan had seen them allow space without aggression. Respect had been earned. The sun climbed higher, warming the wet rocks. Ethan began to understand the pack's routines. They stayed close, alert, but did not interfere with the cubs or him. The Alpha occasionally sniffed the air, checking for danger, but his presence was no longer hostile. Ethan whispered softly to the cubs, telling them stories, humming lullabies, and keeping them calm. He could feel the Alpha's gaze, heavy but thoughtful, watching as he cared for the young. Ethan realized that this was more than survival. This was trust being built between two very different species. The cubs eventually stirred more fully, stretching their small limbs and looking around with bright eyes. Ethan smiled softly. He whispered, "You're safe. The pack won't hurt you now." The cubs responded with small chirps and nudges pressing against his chest. The Alpha watched closely, then lowered his massive head to sniff the cubs one more time. Ethan held his breath. The Alpha's eyes flicked to him, then to the cubs, and finally back at Ethan. There was no aggression, only observation. The Alpha had made a decision. He had relented. He had allowed the human to care for their young. Mercy had survived and a bond had begun. Days passed. Ethan and the cub stayed in the cave, moving cautiously to find food and water. The alpha and the pack remained nearby, watching, but not interfering. Ethan learned to read their movements, sensing when they were relaxed and when they were alert. He began to understand their behavior, their language of growls, postures, and gestures. Slowly, he gained their trust, not just by protecting the cubs, but by showing care, patience, and respect. The cubs thrived under his care, gaining strength and confidence. They played softly in the cave, chasing small rocks and rolling over each other. Ethan laughed quietly, feeling a warmth he had not felt since the crash. The alpha eventually approached Ethan more closely, his massive form filling part of the cave. Ethan stayed calm, holding the cubs gently. The alpha sniffed him carefully, then lowered his head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. Ethan whispered softly, "We are friends. We can survive together." The alpha growled low, a sound that was not threatening but almost approving. The warriors behind him mirrored his movements, approaching cautiously but without hostility. The bond between human and pack was forming, built on trust, courage, and care. Over the next several weeks, Ethan and the pack grew closer. He learned to move among them without fear. He learned their signals, their ways of communicating, and how to anticipate their needs. The cubs thrived, growing stronger each day under his care. The alpha allowed Ethan to teach them, to guide them gently, and even to play. Ethan realized that this was more than survival. He was building a family across species, a bond that went beyond fear and violence. The alpha had relented, and the humans and pack were beginning to understand one another. One day, a small threat appeared. A predator, larger and more aggressive than usual, approached the cave. The alpha growled, signaling the warriors to prepare. Ethan held the cubs close, ready to defend them if necessary. The predator lunged, but the pack moved as one, coordinated and powerful. They drove it away quickly, protecting Ethan and the cubs. Ethan watched in awe as the alpha led with strength and intelligence. He realized that he was no longer just a human in danger. He was part of a larger bond, protected and respected by creatures once feared. Courage, care, and loyalty had created a new alliance. As months passed, Ethan and the pack continued to survive together. He built small shelters, found sustainable food, and kept the cubs safe. The alpha allowed him to move freely, trusting him completely. The cubs grew into strong young aliens, playful and confident, learning from both Ethan and their pack. The bond between human and alien had deepened, proving that trust, care, and courage could overcome fear and violence. Ethan whispered softly to the cubs, "We are a family now, and nothing can break us."
News of the human protecting the pack's young spread across nearby colonies and planets. Other humans and alien species began to see that humans were not only fighters, but protectors.
Courage, care, and mercy could survive even in dangerous worlds. Ethan's story became a symbol, a story of hope, and a lesson for both species. The alpha and the warriors respected him. The cubs loved him, and the bond between humans and aliens grew stronger every day. Years later, Ethan looked at the young aliens he had raised. They were strong, confident, and loyal to both their pack and him. The alpha approached, his massive form moving with dignity and pride. Ethan whispered softly, "We did it. We survived. Together." The alpha growled low, a sound of respect and approval. The warriors circled, calm and alert, but without threat. The bond that had started in fear and danger had grown into trust, friendship, and loyalty. Courage, care, and mercy had survived. Humans had proven themselves worthy allies, protectors, and friends. Ethan knew that the world was dangerous, that storms, predators, and war could come at any time, but he also knew that bonds built on trust and care could survive. The pack, the cubs, and he were stronger together. The alpha had relented, and that decision had changed the course of their lives. Ethan whispered softly, "We are a family now, and we will face whatever comes, together." The cubs chirped softly, pressing against him. The alpha growled low, a sound of approval. The warriors relaxed, watching over their young and the human who had proven himself. Mercy had survived. Courage had survived. Care had survived. Humanity had survived. In the quiet of the cave under the rising sun, Ethan held the cubs, feeling their warmth and life. Outside, the alpha and the pack watched, alert but calm. The bond between species had been formed. The human who had faced fear, pain, and danger with courage and care had earned trust, friendship, and respect. The cubs were safe, the pack was at peace, and Ethan Cole had changed the future. He had shown that even in the deadliest places, mercy, courage, and care could survive. He had proven the truth of humanity, and for that, the world would never forget.